4:47 a.m. Yuma, Arizona, January 7th, 2026. The hydraulic ram hit the roll-up door of Unit 187 at Desert Ridge Climate Storage. The door buckled inward on the second strike. A DSS entry team moved through the opening in 4-second intervals. Flashlights cutting across a 200-square-foot climate-controlled space, the kind leased by RV winterers, small e-commerce sellers, and transient construction crews needing somewhere to keep inventory between seasons. A folding table, a laptop, a power strip, an extension cable running toward the rear wall and disappearing through a sealed conduit. Behind the rear wall, plywood, framed, fitted, painted the same industrial gray as the original interior panel. An agent raised a Halligan bar. 3 strikes, the panel gave. On the concrete floor of the 9-by-7-foot space behind it, insulated drywall, a climate duct rerouted to keep air circulating. A woman, 38 years old, alive. Severely dehydrated, 18 days. 3 Iranian nationals were already on the facility asphalt before the medical response team reached her. What you're looking at is what a sanctions-evasion extortion network looks like when it collides with a retired aerospace engineer carrying a hobby drone on a Saturday morning. The network had 5 layers of corporate cover across 4 jurisdictions, a command link to Tehran running through a commercial relay in Rotterdam, and an anonymized hub in Dubai. A hardened directional communications array inside a leased storage space, rented on time with cash under a Delaware LLC whose trail ended in the British Virgin Islands. What it didn't plan for was Gerald Ott, 61 years old, Palmdale, California. The 600-pixel JPEG he uploaded to a hobby forum on an afternoon in November. The investigation that would follow, 27 days of coordinated work between the Diplomatic Security Service and Homeland Security investigations, started with a single question. What had the auditor seen in those cargo manifests that a Tehran-linked extortion operation considered worth taking her for 18 days? The answer, when forensic teams extracted the seized communications device 6 weeks later, expanded the case from 5 individuals in Arizona to a freight certification network operating through 3 American ports, 23 falsified manifests, and 42 documented contact windows with a handler the investigation never fully identified. This is where it started. Her name in the federal case record, Diana Ferrara, 38 years old. Long Beach, California. 8 years at a maritime insurance underwriting firm, contracted with freight brokerages at the Port of Los Angeles. Her job, certify cargo manifests, to attest that what a shipping document claimed was inside a container actually matched what was inside. It sounds administrative. It's not. An auditor's signature is the last civilian checkpoint before export. Without it, the shipment doesn't move. With it, every downstream system, port inspection, customs clearance, export control review, assumes someone with institutional accountability reviewed the paperwork and found it in order. The signature is a statement of fact made under professional obligation. In September 2025, 3 manifests arrived at Ferrara's desk from Meridian Pacific Logistics, LLC. Declared contents, industrial filtration components. Routing, Port of Los Angeles to a bonded warehouse in Nogales, Arizona, then final delivery to a recipient in Central Texas. She pulled the import records. The declared weights didn't match the routing documentation. The Nogales warehouse registration traced through 2 layers of corporate paperwork to a trading company incorporated in Dubai in 2023. She flagged all 3 manifests for secondary review and notified her supervisor that afternoon. 48 hours later, an unlisted number called. The caller said the review was unnecessary, the manifests were accurate, and she should close the flag and sign the certifications. Then the language shifted. They knew her home address. They knew the names of members of her immediate family. Ferrara ended the call. She retrieved her personal cell phone and pressed record. Then she called the number back. That second call ran 11 minutes and 22 seconds. Her employer turned the recording over to DSS 3 weeks later. It became the first hard evidentiary link between the cargo clearance operation and a specific individual under documented threat. Diana Ferrara did not sign the certifications. She disappeared on October 31, 2025. Her housemate reported her missing after she failed to return from a scheduled drive to a client meeting in San Diego. Her car was found November 3rd on a frontage road near Winter Haven, California. Keys in the ignition, phone gone, personal bag on the passenger seat untouched. The plywood inner cell inside Unit 187 had been constructed 5 days before that disappearance. Built over a single weekend in late October by individuals paying cash rent on the storage unit under a lease held by a Delaware-registered LLC called Arco Meridian Holdings. The facility management never knew about the modification. No inspection was triggered. The climate ducts had been rerouted to service the interior space. This was deliberate, prepared in advance, and invisible from outside. This was not an improvised reaction to Ferrara's refusal. This was a prepared contingency. The corporate structure behind Unit 187 ran 5 layers across 4 jurisdictions. Pacific Basin Freight Partners, LLC, held the Desert Ridge storage lease. Pacific Basin was a registered subsidiary of SunWest Distributors Group, a Nevada holding entity with a registered Gibraltar address. SunWest shared a registered agent with Arco Meridian Holdings. Arco Meridian's principal beneficiary, per British Virgin Islands corporate registry filings from 2022, was a Tehran-based trading company that the U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control had formally designated as a sanctions-evasion front in August 2023. The goods moving through the Meridian Pacific Logistics Manifest, the containers Ferrara had been asked to certify, were declared as industrial filtration components. What that classification actually covered was the central question the case was built around. Export control review depends on accurate classification. A false classification certified by a licensed auditor passes through port inspection at standard rates. The entire downstream system assumes the auditor's review is doing its job. An auditor who refuses to sign isn't a compliance inconvenience. She's a structural threat to a pipeline that's been running for 14 months. I went through the OFAC designation records and the BVI corporate registry filings after the indictment became public. One detail kept surfacing. The Tehran entity had been formally designated in August 2023, more than 2 years before the Meridian Pacific Logistics manifest crossed Ferrara's desk. The network had been operational in some form for that entire period. What happened in Yuma wasn't the beginning. It was the point where they made a choice that left a physical signature they couldn't anticipate. How did that signature get found? November 22nd, 2025. Gerald Ott was flying his quadcopter east of Yuma over agricultural drainage fields on a Saturday morning, testing a new camera mount, flying a longer circuit than usual. He swept over the back row of Desert Ridge climate storage and photographed something odd. A commercial-grade Yagi directional antenna, the kind engineered for long-range radio transmission, bolted to the exterior wall of one of the climate units and drawing power through a sealed conduit into the unit's interior. Ott posted the image to a radio hobbyist forum that afternoon. Caption: "Anyone know what tenant would need comms equipment like this in a storage lot?" Marco Delgado, 44 years old, a CBP analyst who had spent 4 years monitoring RF anomalies at Yuma's port of entry. He was browsing that forum on a Sunday afternoon off duty 3 days later. He knew what a Yagi at that transmission scale was designed to accomplish. He also knew what it wasn't. He filed an informal referral to HSI Tucson the following Monday morning. 9 words in the body field. "This doesn't look like a legitimate tenant installation." That referral sat in a processing queue for 11 days. Here's what matters. 11 days. A referral categorized as non-urgent radio frequency anomaly, sitting in an HSI field office, running at roughly 3 times standard incoming volume due to concurrent financial fraud investigations and seasonal border enforcement demand on the same analytical staff. The chain that would ultimately extract Diana Ferrara from Unit 187 came within 11 days of missing its entry point entirely. Not because the system failed, because of volume and categorization. The system nearly absorbed the signal. Special Agent Pauline DeWood picked up the referral on December 3rd. She ran the storage facility location against active case files within 40 minutes. The Sun West Distributors Group Financial Intelligence flag, a FinCEN referral tied to structured cash deposits at 3 Yuma area banks over 4 months, was already in her queue. Same corporate tree, same registered agent chain resolved in under an hour. She pulled in DSS San Diego the same afternoon, after the Meridian Pacific Logistics file arrived from Ferrara's employer, including the 11-minute and 22-second recording Ferrara had made of the threatening call. By December 6th, the joint team had assessed with reasonable confidence that Diana Ferrara was being held alive in the Yuma area by operatives connected to the Sun West and Arco Meridian corporate structure, for the purpose of compelling her cooperation on the pending manifest or preventing her testimony about the documented threat. They didn't yet know about Unit 187. They didn't know about the inner cell. What they had was the Yagi antenna drawing power at 11 to 14 times a standard residential outlet, a load the facility's metering system had been logging since October 26. October 26 was 5 days before Diana Ferrara disappeared. The facility management had never reviewed those logs. The storage unit was paid up. The tenant hadn't complained. Hit like now before the entry sequence. What comes next is the part the case record almost didn't produce. Most people assume federal investigations rely on surveillance assets, confidential source networks, financial intelligence targeting, coordinated interagency watch listing. This case came together differently. A civilian pilot extended his flight circuit and photographed an antenna. An off-duty analyst recognized the antenna 3 days later on a hobby forum. A financial intelligence flag and a location referral, each sitting in separate queues, resolved against each other in 40 minutes in the hands of one agent. Every step in that chain was contingent on something the network couldn't anticipate or control. What's striking about cases like this, and it surfaces consistently in the federal operations record, is not the sophistication of the criminal infrastructure. It's how often the exposure point is something the network couldn't have modeled. The 5-layer corporate structure was designed to withstand financial scrutiny. The Yagi relay was designed to withstand signals intelligence. The construction of the inner cell was designed to withstand casual observation. None of those defenses accounted for a quadcopter test flight on a Saturday morning. The network planned for every adversary except the one that showed up. The FISA-adjacent emergency authorization for passive RF monitoring of the Yagi's transmission signature went in December 6th. It cleared December 14th. 9 days. This was the first structural obstacle in the investigation's timeline. The emergency track submission compressed the normal authorization process from approximately 3 weeks to 9 days. That's fast within the legal framework. Within the context of a hostage case, 9 days in which the team had a probable target site, probable cause, and a missing person they assessed to be alive on a time-sensitive basis. They couldn't conduct RF monitoring. They couldn't move on the site. They waited. The authorization cleared on a Tuesday. By Thursday, HSI technical specialists had fully characterized the antenna's operational schedule. Active for approximately 40 minutes nightly, between 11 p.m. and midnight, consistent with a coordinated daily contact window. Status reports from the unit to a fixed handler at a fixed time. 44 consecutive evenings logged from October 26 without variation. The Phoenix thread broke 10 days later. IRS criminal investigation cross-referenced the Sun West Distributors Group structured deposit pattern against travel and financial transaction records, and identified a debit card registered to an individual who appeared as a secondary signatory on the Sun West corporate filing, used at a Phoenix extended stay hotel over 7 consecutive weeks. The cardholder had entered the United States on a business visa in November 2024. His listed employer on the visa application, the Tehran trading company OFAC, had designated in 2023. By December 26th, the operational picture was complete. 3 Iranian nationals at the storage unit on a documented 36-hour rotation, 2 support operatives at the Phoenix Hotel, a Tehran handler receiving nightly status through the Yagi relay, 1 hostage, alive, day 57 of captivity in a plywood cell inside a climate-controlled storage unit in Yuma. The joint team began breach planning December 28th. 2 simultaneous operations, Yuma entry at the unit, Phoenix containment at the hotel. The breach was scheduled for 4:47 a.m., January 7th, 2026. 8 hours before that window locked, the Phoenix surveillance team reported that one of the 2 identified operatives had checked out of the hotel. Vehicle gone, room clear, departure untracked. That information reached the command element at 11:40 p.m. on January 6th. The question, was the Phoenix operative leaving the city or in transit toward the storage unit for a rotation shift? The answer determined whether the simultaneous breach model was still viable or whether a missing operative, alerted through the nightly contact window, had already triggered a response protocol inside Unit 187 that changed what the entry team would find. The command element had 2 options, delay to reacquire or move. They moved. 3 documented reasons in the post-operation debrief. The nightly 11 p.m. contact window had run normally with no alert pattern detected in the transmission signature. The most probable explanation for the hotel checkout was a routine rotation shift toward Yuma, consistent with the 36-hour cycle documented across 2 weeks of monitoring. And every additional hour represented an additional variable in a situation where the primary stake was not the forensic value of the seized device. DSS and HSI elevated to emergency authorization direct action. The breach timeline advanced by 2 hours. Additional HSI tactical assets repositioned from Tucson, not the original 2-team split, but a 3-team deployment. Yuma entry, Phoenix Hotel primary, Phoenix Hotel secondary, covering an 8-mile radius of alternate lodging properties. There was an argument in the final 48 hours for waiting. The argument wasn't irrational. The Yagi device, if seized intact, contained forensic data pointing to 42 additional contact windows, potentially 42 other nodes in a broader network. Every additional day of surveillance was another day those nodes remained visible. Move too early and you dismantle the Yuma cell while the broader network adapts and continues. Here's what needs to be said plainly. That argument was wrong, and the people making it knew why. Diana Ferrara had been in that storage unit for 63 days. The forensic value of the seized device was real, and it would prove as significant as the case warranted. But the device would be there when the team went in. What a delay couldn't protect was an operational contingency triggered by a missing operative and an unmonitored gap in the contact schedule. The case file can be rebuilt. What happens inside a sealed plywood cell can't be undone. The breach went forward. January 7th, 2026. 4:47 a.m. Temperature, 34 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind from the northwest at 12 miles per hour. The facility's power to the affected circuit cut 2 minutes prior through a pre-coordinated action with Yuma City Public Works, killing the overhead lighting in the back row without triggering a general alarm. The DSS entry team came in from the west end of the storage row in 2 vehicles. No lights, no sirens, radios on encrypted channels only. HSI tactical support sealed the facility's vehicle entrance and pedestrian gate from the east simultaneously. The hydraulic ram hit Unit 187's roll-up door. 160 pounds. 2 strikes. The door buckled inward. The entry team swept the interior by flashlight. Folding table, laptop, satellite-linked router. Commercial power strip running to the rear conduit. The feed line for the Yagi array mounted on the exterior bracket outside. And the plywood false wall. The Halligan bar. 3 strikes. The team lead's first radio report went out at 4:53 a.m. Female subject, alive, ambulatory. She was transferred to the staged medical response team at 5:12 a.m. and transported to Yuma Regional Medical Center. 3 Iranian nationals were in custody by 4:58. 1 had been in the unit's main space at breach. 2 were in a GMC cargo van registered to Pacific Basin Freight Partners, LLC, parked in the adjacent storage row. Arriving for the rotation shift in transit when the team entered, the van contained 2 encrypted laptops and $147,000 in banded currency. Put yourself in Special Agent DeWood's position at 5:20 a.m. on January 7th, 27 days from a 9-word form referral about an antenna to 5 pending arrests, a recovered hostage, and an intact forensic device whose encrypted partition hadn't been wiped. The battery backup maintained the partition through the power cut. 42 contact windows intact, spanning 44 days of nightly communication. The Phoenix secondary sweep team located the missing operative at 11:14 a.m., checked into a different extended stay property 8 miles from the original hotel, a routine lodging change with no apparent connection to surveillance detection. Arrested without resistance at 11:22 a.m., 5 in custody, 0 shots fired. The Yagi device seized intact. The device's encrypted partition logged every contact session from October 26, 2025 through January 4th, 2026. The session metadata included routing information, signals relayed through a commercial freight brokerage address in Rotterdam, through an anonymized relay hub in Dubai, before reaching the Tehran command point. 42 sessions, 42 different contact windows within that same relay architecture. This was not a Yuma operation. Yuma was one node. Federal court filings entered in U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona in February 2026 documented a cargo clearance network that had successfully processed 23 falsified maritime insurance certifications through 3 American ports, Los Angeles, Houston, and Miami, over 14 months beginning September 2024. The declared contents across all 23 industrial filtration components, agricultural processing equipment, commercial refrigeration parts, standard classifications that pass port-level inspection at normal rates when a licensed auditor's signature attests to their accuracy. All 23 certifications traced to a single auditor at a second underwriting firm, not Ferrara, a different auditor at a different firm who had been subjected to a separate coercion campaign in early 2025 and had been signing manifests for the network ever since. He cooperated with the investigation. He was identified as a witness, not a defendant. Subscribe now so you don't miss the follow-up on what those manifests were actually moving. We're tracking the Bureau of Industry and Security referral as it develops, and we'll cover it when the record becomes public. 800 metric tons, 3 ports, 14 months. The final disposition of those goods, what the declared classifications covered, where the containers went, whether any portion of their contents reached the Tehran-linked trading network that paid for the clearance certifications, hasn't appeared in any public filing as of June 2026. The question we're sitting with: what does it mean when the system that processes 23 falsified certifications over 14 months resolves for the auditor who signed them under documented coercion in witness status rather than professional consequence? The prosecutorial reasoning is defensible. The coercive circumstances were real and severe, but the structural outcome is this: an extortion network that successfully identifies and compromises a licensed professional in a position of institutional trust faces lower legal consequence for the compromised individual than for the operatives who ran the extortion. Whatever you think about the fairness for the auditor personally, and the circumstances were genuinely severe, the consequence for the integrity of the 23 certifications he signed isn't addressed by witness status. Those manifests cleared. That freight moved. Is that justice served? Tell us in the comments. We read everyone. The post-raid device extraction also produced something the team hadn't initially anticipated: a message in the archive sessions sent from a Phoenix area device to the Tehran relay approximately 9 hours after Diana Ferrara's car was found abandoned near Winter Haven on November 3rd, 2025. 3 words in Farsi transliterated to Latin script. The translation, "package is secure." That message was logged on November 3rd, 2025, 65 days before the breach. The final session in the device's archive ran January 4th, 2026, 3 days before the raid, standard length, no alert pattern. The Tehran handler had, up to that point, received 65 consecutive daily status reports from Unit 187. The 40-second contact window in the session log pointed to a relay address inside a commercial freight brokerage in Rotterdam. That address went dark on January 9th, 2026, 2 days after the raid made local news. Whether the Rotterdam node migrated to a different relay architecture, shut down in response to the Yuma exposure, or simply changed communication protocols isn't reflected in any public filing. The forensic team confirmed active traffic through that address as recently as January 4th. Post-closure, nothing. A node that had been active for at least 44 documented days stopped responding within 48 hours of the Yuma arrest becoming public. What that absence represents, shutdown or migration, is the open question the investigation couldn't close. Federal charges were filed January 9th, 2026. 5 defendants. Hostage-taking under 18 U.S.C. Section 1203, conspiracy to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Material support to a foreign sanctions evasion network. In February 2026, 2 additional indictments followed through the cooperation agreement entered by one of the 5 original defendants. A logistics coordinator in Nogales, who had managed the bonded warehouse link between the Port of Los Angeles and the Arizona transit point, and a financial intermediary in Dubai, who had processed the SunWest Distributors Group structured deposits. The Nogales coordinator surrendered to federal authorities. The Dubai intermediary did not. An Interpol red notice was issued. That individual remains at large as of this recording. Team yes in the comments if you think he gets caught. Team no if the Interpol notice goes nowhere. We're monitoring the extradition request and will update when the record moves. One detail from the post-operation debrief that became part of the court record: the 36-minute window between the Phoenix checkout report reaching the command element and the breach timeline locking in. 36 minutes to assess whether a missing operative represented a surveillance detection, a routine rotation, or something else, and to decide whether to move or delay. The breach went forward. The missing operative was eating dinner at a hotel 8 miles away, but the team couldn't know that. The decision was made on assessment, not on certainty. That 36-minute window doesn't appear in the news coverage. It's in the debrief. It's the part of these operations that doesn't photograph well. Diana Ferrara was discharged from Yuma Regional Medical Center on January 10, 2026. 3 days after the breach, she hasn't given public statements. Her former employer hasn't commented on her professional status. The 3 Meridian Pacific Logistics manifests that started this, the ones with the weight discrepancies in the Dubai registered transit warehouse, the ones she flagged for secondary review in September 2025, the ones she received a threatening call about, the ones she refused to sign, are in the U.S. Attorney's evidentiary file for the District of Arizona. Unsigned, a network built with 5 corporate layers, a transatlantic communications relay, and a plywood holding cell inside a rented climate storage unit in Yuma, Arizona, to get one auditor to put her name on 3 documents. She did not put her name on them. The Yuma cell is dismantled. 5 individuals charged, 2 additional indictments, 1 outstanding Interpol notice, 23 falsified certifications referred to Federal Export Control Review, 800 metric tons of goods through 3 ports, 14 months, undisclosed final disposition, a Rotterdam relay address that went dark 2 days after the arrests. The Tehran trading company that created the network remains designated by OFAC. The demand that made a network like this economically viable, the ability to move sanctioned technology through American commercial ports under falsified civilian certification, hasn't changed. One node is gone. The 42 contact windows in the seized device point to a network that extended well beyond 5 arrests in Arizona. The Rotterdam address is still dark. Whether dark means dismantled or means moved is the question the investigation opened and did not close.